James and Mr. Cloudy versus Hector and Mr. Dupin. Written and illustrated by Despicable Me. Dedicated to my friends and family. A gnome named James was having a normal day, just sitting and reading a book with his best friend, Mr. Cloudy. They liked reading together at Mr. Cloudy's house, which was up in the sky where no one could disturb them. James was small, of course, and he wore a long curvy hat. Mr. Cloudy was made of clouds, and when he was upset, rain poured out of him. The two of them liked to argue about which books were the best. Mr. Cloudy was reading a book called Myths and Legends. Suddenly, he came across an astonishing sentence. Every 10 years, two people named Hector and Mr. Dupin picked two people at random to send to their gnome race. This year's picks are... Mr. Cloudy read on, hoping he wouldn't get picked. He had heard stories of others who had to participate in the gnome race in the news. It was impossible to finish because Mr. Dupin and Hector made more and more levels that harder and harder. The people in the race never got out. However, the two of them promised that if someone was able to finish the race, they would free everyone. When Mr. Cloudy finally read the rest of the list, it included not only his name, but James' name too. Mr. Cloudy panicked. "Oh no," he whispered to himself so James wouldn't hear. "If we get sent to the gnome race, we will probably never get back." Mr. Cloudy heard a knock on the door. Before he could warn him, James opened the door, not knowing that Hector was there to take the two of them away to the race. Rain started pouring out of him with thunder and lightning. He was mad. "We have to finish this race, not just for us, but for all the people stuck in their never-ending levels." James and Mr. Cloudy were taken to level 1, Chocolate Land. They started having to jump over chocolate puddles, swim through chocolate rivers, and climb chocolate buildings. To Mr. Dupin's and Hector's surprise, James and Mr. Cloudy got through Chocolate Land really fast. When they got to level 2, Penguin Palace, James and Mr. Cloudy were as cold as ice, so they had to put on their winter clothes. They had to collect 100 penguin charms. The charms were hidden in ice mazes, freezing cold lakes, and in holes in the snow. While they were playing, they saw a chemical. They touched it, and it helped them find the penguin charms. They also found an ice board, which helped them collect the penguin charms. After that, a screen appeared that said, "There are 250 levels to go." Mr. Cloudy almost fainted. They went on to level 3, the Amazon. James and Mr. Cloudy had to collect 15 piranhas in a basket. It was hard because the two racers had to swim through rivers that had many crocodiles in them. After many more levels like these, James and Mr. Cloudy had to beat Mr. Dupin, who was throwing big boulders at them. If they got hit by a boulder, they would get flattened like a pancake. "We're toast," said James with a slight feeling of doubt. "You'll never pass me," Mr. Dupin said with an evil laugh. "Let the battle begin." There were boulders everywhere they looked. James and Mr. Cloudy dodged the rocks by jumping, ducking, and catching. But a boulder finally hit them. They quickly recovered and threw it back at Mr. Dupin and knocked him over into a volcano. After getting Mr. Dupin out of the way, James and Mr. Cloudy walked over a balance beam high over a pit of lava. Hector tried to push them off the beam. "Hey, that's not fair," said Mr. Cloudy. "Fair, unfair, who cares?" laughed Hector. "Wait, I have an idea," said James. "Let's throw our piranhas at him." The two of them started throwing the piranhas at him. One hit him in its teeth. Its teeth sank into Hector's bottom. He shrieked in pain. Hector started to lose his balance, and he slipped and fell into a pit of lava. "Hooray!" they exclaimed. "No one will have to take part of any of these horrible races," said James. When they got teleported home, they tried to read a book, but news reporters started knocking on the door. It became more and more irritating until they knocked down the door down and went through the door. That's the end. Okay, picture. Project reflection. I think my story is inspired by Roald Dahl for many reasons. First of all, I included a bittersweet ending. My ending is like in Matilda, when Trumbo afraid when she sees the chalk writing by itself. It's also like in The Witches, when the boy turns into a mouse. In my story, Mr. Dupin die, Hector and Mr. Dupin die, while James and Mr. Cloudy survive. Next, I use magic. In the magic finger, the girl turns the family into birds, and the birds that got turned into half ducks, half humans lived in their house. In my story, Mr. Cloudy is a cloud and can talk, even though clouds cannot normally talk. Last but not least, I meet my antagonist an adult. In Danny the Champion of the World, Mr. Hazel tries to get his pheasant back from Danny and his dad. And then suddenly the pheasant fly away and never come back. In the Twits try to eat the birds, but the monkeys and the birds eventually beat the Twits. And in my story, Hector and Dupin tried to stop Jane from Mr. Cloudy from finishing the gnome race. As I can see, my story is inspired from Roald Dahl for many reasons. About the author. Hi, my nickname is Despicable Me. I'm a third grader a student in Trevor's classroom at Stevenson Pact Elementary School. I live with my mom and dad. At home, I enjoy playing on iExcel. I also enjoy reading books and watching TV after lunch. When my dad comes home, we play on our tablet. Near the end of the year, my dad's work makes a huge party. In school, I like to learn about division and multiplication with Trevor. When we go out to recess and lunch, I like to play tag. This year, we learned about the school board. We made pamphlets on Google Drive and handed them out to door to door. I also learned information about the school board candidates. I decided to write James and Mr. Cloudy and Mr. Dupin because come up with them. It was easy to come up with them. Actually, Trevor made up the names of the characters. During the process of writing it, I learned how to make my stories better because at first I copied the characters. Trevor asked me to revise my story with another student. Then another student had to read it again, and it got even better. In the end, it was much better when I tapped it by myself. Thank you for taking the time to read my story.